So now let's go to our roving reporter, Huldah Thompson. Huldah Thompson will be doing part 2 of the New York State Black and Puerto Rican Conference, and her special guest will be Marion Porterfield. So let's take a look at the New York State Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Conference with Huldah Thompson and Marion Porterfield.
Thank you again for watching the Roving Reporter. We are back again with part 2 of our special coverage about the Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus. Again, my guest is Marion Porterfield, and she's here to talk about this caucus and what it means to us. So Marion, again, before we begin, introduce yourself again as to who you are and what you do.
My name is Marion Porterfield, and I am a community organizer in the City of Schenectady, and I reside in Hamilton Hill, although I work throughout the city.
Okay, thank you. So we've been talking in the last week, we talked about the importance of people getting out there and being a part of this caucus. This week we're going to talk about 2 of the key speakers, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about the theme, which was open doors to employment, open doors to empowerment. You know, the importance of jobs for young people and for anybody, you know, especially minorities. Yes.
It's absolutely important that, you know, as I said before, that young people, that everyone have an opportunity to work. It's, you know, it builds character, it does all those things that we talk about. And additionally, it builds up communities, because when people are employed, they're able to take care of their homes, take care of their families. And so, you know, it gives a sense of belonging, a sense of, you know, pride and all of the things that go with it. And additionally, Huldah, when people are unemployed, it's the opposite of the things I just mentioned. You know, they have no sense of pride, you know, and unfortunately, statistics say it, I'm not making it up, that lack of employment also leads to crime and other things that bring down communities. So it's really important that people have the opportunity to work, that they get the tools that are necessary for them to work, the education, I know that we're going to talk about that, and all those things are necessary to build up communities, because communities are made out of people. So doing that, we're building up people.
Okay. And one of 2 of the key speakers, the first one was Senator Christian Gillibrand.
Yes.
And I was so surprised because I didn't see her name on the list in the bulletin. And then all of a sudden there she was. And, you know, of course, I had to go get a clip from her. And her theme was education.
So as I look at some of the challenges that lay in front of you, I'm most concerned about our children. When I left my house tonight and gave a kiss to my 3-year-old Henry and my 8-year-old Theodore, I look at them and I say, these children have every opportunity in the world. And why is it that not every child in America will get that opportunity to reach his or her potential? That's the question that we as legislators and we as community activists must ask ourselves over and over again. And I'm very concerned about our at-risk youth in inner cities. I'm very concerned about the youth who have been incarcerated and who do not get a high school education. Because when those children do not have an opportunity to get job training or to have a chance to reach his or her potential, they become a lost generation. A lost generation of youth, because when you're out of work, even for a short period of time, your likelihood of getting a job decreases and decreases. Self-esteem decreases, and those opportunities begin to pass them by.
It's extremely important for people to get their education, and I think people should have choices in what the education looks like. Most of the time, when we think about education, we think, well, everyone goes to a 4-year college and all of that. But you know what? That's not for everybody. And so sometimes people want to get their education vocationally, and so that they can work in a field where they don't necessarily need a 4-year degree or bachelor's or master's. So I think it's important that we stress education, but we stress that there are different areas, ways that people can educate themselves in order to be employed. So we don't put people in a box necessarily and say, everybody has to fit into this, and if you don't fit into this, then you don't fit. No, there's a wider range of education. There's all kinds of programs that people can participate in. And let me just add that I personally believe in lifelong education. So that as you go through life, you educate yourself continually, so that you're able to, to grow and to pass that on to your children and other part and your family.
Exactly.
That's important to me.
Yes, because she mentioned that kids who are in juvenile detention and things like that, the importance of them getting education. And they may not want to go on to college degree, but they may want to learn a trade.
Exactly.
And they may want to learn something that is similar, but to get that, the key was to get that education.
That's right.
So that my grandmother would always say, get that piece of paper.
That's right. Get that piece of paper, because that's what makes the difference.
It does. does. It does.
And people, sometimes people say, well, that you shouldn't make a difference, but it does make a difference, and it is what it is right now.
Yes.
And so if that's what it is, then that's what we need to work within. But to realize, again, that there's a broader scope, but get that piece of paper.
The speaker that I enjoyed the most was Andrew Young, Reverend
Yes.
Young, because here is a man who was with Martin Luther
I know,
King.
yeah.
You know, here is a civil rights fighter, and who, you know, not only just fought on one side, but also went into government, and now he's an ambassador.
Yes.
Hello, you know, and I love what he said. He said, you know, I'm part of the board of Delta, so wherever Delta flies, I go. You
Right.
know?
There's a lot of work that has to be done, and it's hard economic work. And nobody's going to tell me that we can't build a big, strong economy here in New York State.
Yes, because you really talk about how, you know, getting minority contract, not only
Yes.
for black people, but for women. You know, sometimes we
Exactly.
think minority, we think black, we think Puerto Rican, but there are white women who are, you know, to some extent considered minority.
That's right.
When we built our mass transit system, we said 20%. But what they did was they gave us 20% of the hardest work with the lowest profit margin. So when Maynard Jackson got elected and I was in Congress, we said, we're not going to build it unless every single contract has at least 25% minority participation. And you know one thing? There had never been any white women to get any contracts from the city. White women got a few contracts. We translated all of our contracts and things into Spanish because we wanted the new citizens from the Hispanic and Latin America coming in to have a full and equal opportunity.
He talked about changing the voting date, which I was surprised because I mean, you know, we know that it's, you know, November and Tuesday, and November is one of the coldest months
Yes,
in
it
the
is.
year, and Tuesday, you know, almost middle of the week. And he was saying, why not change it to a weekend?
Our problem is the election's on a Tuesday in November, and only 50% of the population is registered. And one of your senators has introduced a weekend voting act. Israel votes on the weekend. Sweden votes on the weekend. In fact, in Sweden, if you don't vote, they put money, they tax you. You have an extra tax for not voting. And that may be why Sweden and Norway have the highest quality of life of most nations in the world, because they demand and require participation by all citizens. And so these are things we've got to begin to work on.
Well, you know, it's really important about the grassroots effort that people need to start in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and educate people on voting and how important it is, because it makes a difference that you have a voice in your government, and that's where it starts. And so I think somewhere along the line we kind of lost a little bit of that, but we really need to get back to that grassroots effort and make sure that people get out the vote, you know, or and not only the presidential election, but all elections, because it makes a difference, because the people that you choose decide what your city, town is going to be like. So it's important that we do it at the local level, get people out, help them to understand that it makes a difference, because, you know, your voice needs to be heard. So I think that Ambassador Young hit it really strong there, and reminded us that that what we thought was that we didn't need to do anymore, we really need to do.
We really do, yes. And one of the third point that I loved what he said was that they're looking to New York, you know, to see what New York does, so that, you know, maybe they can copy it nationwide. And I think it's so glad that we are, you know, being put to the forefront.
And since they are looking towards New York, we have to make sure that we set the best example
That
possible
is true.
to make sure that we achieve these things.
Yes,
You know, the rest of the country is looking at New York.
Now, I want to ask you, so this is a little bit more local, but if I were to say, okay, no, I'm listening to this, I want to be a part of the voter registration process, how would I get involved with that, if any, you know, how would I do that?
Well, you know, there's different groups doing it, and I'm working with a group that does it. So obviously you could reach out to me, but beyond that, you could always go to the Board of Election, and they would tell you, you know, different groups that are doing voter registration, and you could just get it started yourself.
Ooh.
If voter registration is something you're really interested in, you get your forms from the Board of Election, and you know, just, it's a very simple thing. You follow a form and you get people registered. And it's something that we really want to be doing right now. Weather's nice. I know it's February, but guess what? Doesn't feel like it.
It sure does.
So people they can get involved through their churches, through neighborhood groups. There's a lot of people that are out there doing voter registration. And especially this year, it's a presidential year.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of voter registration going on. So people can get involved in a number of ways. And I strongly encourage them to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Marion. It's been a
All right,
pleasure
thank
having
you.
you.
It's been great being here.
Okay, so we've been talking with Marion Porterfield about the Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus. This is our second segment of this piece, the Roving Reporter piece. Thank you guys for watching. And we'll end with just a quick comment from Assemblyman Nick Perry. He's the chair of the caucus, to hear what he has to say, or what he had to say regarding the overview of the caucus. So thank you again for watching the Roving Reporter. I'm Huldah Thompson.
I'm Assemblyman Nick Perry. I'm the chairman of the Association of Black and Puerto Rican Legislators. The feedback so far was a great weekend, and like I said, most of the time throughout the weekend, I hope that all the people who came got some benefit from being here, and they go back home more informed, more willing to do their part to open doors to employment, so that we'll have time to open the doors to empowerment.
Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.